Wu Din or Odin. So they put together, see, Mace Windu supposed to have been white. But they got too much color from it, I guess, after Lando Calrissian. He was, a nigga off the street pimping, and he got lucked up and stole something, and, got killed. And now they got Mace Windu. But you got to look at the little side games that they have going first. So let me just get this. They're putting Maker in there. I want you to look at this. Who is it that they're fighting? Dark side. Dark side, right? The dark side of the Force. If you look at the word the dark side, they keep repeating this constantly. If you look at the word dark side, it comes up to this. Anybody know who this is? Right. Now here's the other one. Anakin. Anakin is essentially Anunnaki. But it's also Ani, which is fire. And he's also Anu, because remember, we can change these anytime we want, which is the Babylonian god of fire.
Of the Anunnaki.
Right, of the Anunnaki. Now, okay. Your boy Anakin, the last word K-I inside of Anakin, no, not Anakin, I mean Obi-Wan Kenobi, O-B-E or O-B-I, of course, remember we can interchange. One, Kenobi. We look at the word ki. Ki is Babylonian for firm land or elemental matter. Ik. This is a Mayan word. And the word Mayan means for breath. It means cosmic energy. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, these things here are the important pronunciations. Remember we're talking about pronunciations. The word ki. Now, Kenobi, N-O-B-E, is essentially Nebo. And Nebo is what? Mercury. Of the Babylonians and Sumerian. This word Nebo you saw as well in the Matrix.
Right.
In the Matrix, you saw the word Nebo where?
Nebuchadnezzar?
No, Nebuchadnezzar was one, but also again it was repeated.
Nibiru?
No, the girl. Niobe, she got it. You see them use Mercury in here again. Because remember, Mercury is the god not only of the light or the bringer of messages, he's also the trickster. Because his path around the sun dips off the horizon constantly. And that's why they have picture up in the Capitol Rotunda doing the dealing for the lands with the Native Americans. Right, that's how he took it. Yeah, real cool, real quick. Okay. Now, your boy.
Very good.
The word here is the most important one. Came from this way. Dath, which means abyss. Dark side. And it also means knowledge. And this is from the Sephiroth. Now, of course, they talk about what it is that they got and they made. It was, you become a Jedi because you have all these high midichlorians in your body. The word midichlorian comes from the word mitochondrion. which are supposedly alien DNA that flew into the atmosphere that we breathed in and became part of our cells, and they're the ones that's telling us what to do. They're the ones that's feeding us by changing and converting our energies, converting our DNA, making our DNA into the proteins that their cells, the mitochondria, that are creating the energy flows. So like I said, you want to be more on this energy, I'll do it later on because there's a whole lot of capitalistic stuff going on, but I ain't got no time for following. I want to lead. How about us wanting to be leaders? You down with that or what? All right, so let's go on to some of the heavier stuff. Because we could go ahead and start decoding the games they're playing, but damn, we already know Darth Idiot. We got Darth Idiot. Thank you. All right, we're back. Okay, we got that all out of the way, everybody? Good. Okay. Thank you very much for your patience. How about taking down that backlight over there? Would you need that light in the back?
The way he had the system set up, you cut off that, everything cut off.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's not good. All right, well, cool again. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, about the water waves of gloom, quality and consistency of water automatically comes to mind when you talk about the water waves of gloom, the movement of water. So biblically, when we first read of a reference to God and the beginning, we see the words like darkness, we see the word like void in conjunction with the word water, as mentioned in Genesis 1, 1 and 2. What is implied by these verses is that the medium of expression for what is perceived as God can only be witnessed or sensed by the causal actions exerted upon itself or upon the waters, which gives off what is perceived as the effects of waves. God, quote-unquote, the Creator, is witnessed through an internal dynamic expressed on the surface of the material senses as waves. Listen carefully. For there to be a witness to this emanating action, the intelligence inherent within the waves must have taken on a form or structural reference by which to reflect information or conscious awareness back to itself. In the realms of creation, the operative word is back. The deepest secret of consciousness is the action. Now this is going to be deep. For people who are first time looking at the way that the world is structured through a new set of value, a new way to form words. So the deepest secret to consciousness is the action that the ineffable Creator takes to refer back to itself, which implies that for the waves to become conscious of itself, not just conscious as itself, the tendency of the wave is to eventually rotate back on itself. Okay, now you remember I just said that everything is the rolling water waves of Nun. But that which is the rolling water waves of Nun is simply the I am that I am. But as the intent within the rolling water waves of Nun, with its own reference point into reality, so that something other than itself, but still itself, is created within the reference to itself. When that happens, now the waves that are affected have to come back on themselves for that intent to know what it's doing. That's when you begin to see that the orientation of the dot in the center. Now where's my dot with the center again, see? The dot in the center. I'll be damned, I love my disorganization. And I love your patience for me being so damn disorganized sometimes. Here we go. Okay. The orientation of the intent is basically in a circle. Why? Because the dot, the black dot, is oriented in that manner. In other words, we'll come to it. Listen carefully. The deepest secret is that consciousness has to crawl back on itself. Not consciousness, but yes, that which is the Creator intent, that creates has to fall back on itself to know that it exists. All right, now again, I'm getting deep like this because these are the modes of thinking that you must have in order for you to do the kind of work introspectively upon yourself. Because if you can't envision what the Creator is by using images based on the words that I've given you, then how are you going to do the self-analysis I was speaking about to get back to your own pi-point reference? You see, everything is done in images, not words. You don't need my words. You need the images that you can make of the words that I have said. All right? So, I'm speaking so that somewhere along the line, you may use my words, and in a moment of meditation, the true meditation, which is the curling back on the self without judgment, without looking for the self, just do the curling. And you'll find yourself. Because the curling action is by the Creator's own movement back to itself. Okay? So, the ancient masters of Chem used the symbol of the dot. Let's just pretend that little smudges the dot. Used the symbol of the dot because the reference of the black dot to its origin and the black dot to its potential was the beginning of God's reference of time and space. Let me say that again. The beginning, this is the reference of the black dot to its origin, which is the black dot looking back the other way before it becomes the circle. So the black dot referencing its origin and the black dot looking at its potential, which is the circle around, was the beginning of God's reference of time and space. This is what is meant by the seemingly unlikely term in the beginning, because there's no such thing. You can only reference that. That's a reference in the beginning. Now, time and space, as a reference of self-consciousness, is the result of geometric holographic harmonics based on the wave motions exhibited by the angular projections and the reference of the pi point itself. So, the pi point itself, just by the fact that it exists as a pi point, just by that reference alone, means that nothing else, being that it's just a point, it has no dimensions, has nothing else, its orientation from here outward would automatically take the design of its circumference, which is circular. So anything that is about life is this way. If you are dealing with life and you're dealing with the pi point of reference, you cannot deal with a pi point that's a pi point and then shit come out like this. That happens only when and after a certain point when these spirals begin to move further and further away. The point of reference where the Creator begins to look upon itself in the material world is the point when the squaring begins. Check! So you have to understand that that place where the curling of the water is back on itself, where the squaring begins, where matter begins. That's the point where the reference to the Creator begins to become the place where illusion and reality is played out. So, let me give you an understanding of how the Creator's mind works. You say, well, goddamn, how do you know? I don't. Who makes you so big? I don't know. All I did was get inspired. Now, you can take it or leave it.
Right.
I ain't preaching, and I ain't passing the hat, and I ain't promising you Jesus. What I am promising is to open up your peripherals of thinking. Now, there's no schematic for it, so I did not have a place to actually put this. All I can tell you, beloved brothers and sisters, is this one salient fact. Creation is negation. Whoa.
Is negation.
The ancient ancestors, your great Kemetic masters, knew that all forms of creation was not a positive act. It was a negating act. The Creator, the darkness, the waters of the deep, the earth without form, the all in all, the I am that I am, this is nothing. But I left a little bit the spaces there to show you that within that, all in all, within a total balance, there was some form of need in there to know itself, other than the way it knew itself. Now, it's so deep that the Bible says that the word knew or knows is another word for what?
Knowledge?
Oh, sex.
Yes. So what? And Lot knew his wife. Can't know it or know it. So he goes, do you know that girl? No, I don't. But the all-encompassing, the all-nothing, and the all that is all. This is it in its totality, its infinitude, its ineffability, its all and nothingness. I cannot, there are no boundaries to the limitlessness of the eternality of the it and the all. How does one inside of that totality come to know anything about itself? Because everything of itself is itself. How does that know the distinction of itself? It doesn't know any distinction of itself. It is all itself.
It's undifferentiated.
Completely. There is nothing distant, near, up, down, in, out. There is only is. So in knowing that, this came about.
A reference of itself.
The reference of itself now had to be created, but not created because there's no outside to it. Is there any outside?
No.
To all?
No.
So how could there be any reference to the all unless in actuality there was a negation or indrawing away from itself?
And into it.
Now we got a secret that everything you're thinking about, throw out there and be positive. Anybody tell you why you be negative? Oh, don't be negative, man. Oh, you sound negative, brother. Yes, I do. And proud of it. Reason being is because the Creator itself is into negation. This is how the cosmic pussy was born. The cosmic pussy. The P-funk. The real P-funk. See, the deep part is that the father retracted for the mother to be. That's where you get the Isis and Horus baby. All that is matter is feeling. Everything that you can touch that's tangible, that has anything to do with material existence is feminine. Everything.
Wisdom.
It's all female. Feminine. Negative. Negated. The positive father figure disappears and leaves the field of potential as earth. The place where his projected intent may now soil or may now fertilize the soil of potential on the other side of itself. See, you're looking only at one side. We are not looking at the other side of this. It's looking out here through a point of reference. Just look at all of this as this. And that the Creator created a point of reference for itself. And even in that holographic projected image, that is eternal.
Sure.
Even though there is an outside to itself by writing a negation, it's still a part of itself. And thus, being a child of this, it's still eternal. Woo! You want to expand your understanding and your, just to get a little bit of good feeling about what God, you don't need to go to church and jump up and down. Just think about that. Just think about that. How deep is that? How deep is it that the Creator, the mind, that is the all in all encompass, the I am that I am, becomes the I am that will be? I don't know about you, boy, but every time I talk about Creator, it's like, wow. You can't get nothing more high. You can't get a high better than that. Understanding that. And here we have, I finally caught up with my point. Here it is. Very good. See? I'm going to be back on track. Right on point. I like that. So here we have, in the beginning, let there be light. In the negation was there light. The Spirit of God moving upon the face of the deep. Creation as negation uses negation to create the cosmic womb. The garden. This is the garden. This whole thing is the garden. This is the 6 days. This little dot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right here. Atum, the 7th day after this, rested. Why did he rest it? It rested because now, based on the potential place that it had reached within its circumference, it began to cycle back around itself. Come on, are we ready or what? This is the 7th day. Yes.
Quick question. So that's, excuse me, so is that like symbolic of the hydrogen atom, like the
See, brother, jumping ahead. Yes. But we are actually just now, we're going to tantalize ourselves because here we are getting to look at, we're doing an autopsy.
Right?
With CSI. And we're looking at the ignorance that's now been killed in here. And we are opening up the corpse. And here's what we find that was locked away in that ignorance. We find now that the Spirit of God in the garden, created to its potential, took 6 days. This is what we want to call 6 days, to reach the outer rim of what we call the garden, the circumference of activity for that part of the universal mind. There we have here, from that center, the lines of intent. The lines of intent became what we see as Adam. The lines of intent are rotational and circular. They are dipolar, creating a schism of electric and magnetism. Now you see this, in emulating this, becomes this. Adam creating Eve. No such animal. The atom created a beginning. That's who Eve was. It was not a woman, it was a time. The creation of Eve was the first perception of time.
And the evening and the morning.
And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now, the serpent is the schism created from the point. And the schism of the rotation now becomes the serpent. And the movement of the serpent, as you will see later on, is what took us out of the circle of energy and put us into the parallelogram that became the square.
Break it down.
Could you repeat that, please? All right. Remember now that the intent is still connected. Listen carefully. The intent is connected to its child. because it is looking for an expression of its potential. That particular potential now being reached into the garden, out of the garden. Remember, Adam was cast out of the garden. Eve stayed. Adam, Eve. Understand what I'm saying to you. Cast out of the garden, squared, squared, to create the parallelogram, the first squaring into creation and reality. The parallelogram signifies the base of the pyramid. In this case, metaphysically, the base of the pyramid of life. Now, we're going to get deep now. This is just the beginning. I'm just trying to get you to stop thinking beyond the present construct of squaring, because all of your thoughts are into the mode of squaring. We have to deal with circling at this time if we are to look at us and ourselves with an orientation geared towards Creator rather than what we project as Creator. When we square, we project our participation in Creator and our interpretation of Creator. But when we are into circling, we can't help but fall back into the orientation that is the Creator itself. And circling brings you right back to self. Squaring doesn't. Squaring puts you into a category. It cements something into place. And that's what we've been doing with our thoughts. Hang on. In other words, it is by this very act of indrawing and negation by the omniscient mind that the vibrations and emanations perceived as waves constitute the quintessential material of existence. Again, all perception, as it filters down to our senses, is based in the fundamental harmonics of vibrational frequencies which form the building blocks of our existence and our anti-existence. We have a wave, counterwave. We have a particle and an antiparticle. That is the basic constituent of life. Brothers and sisters, the ancestors have always known that physical reality is formed from the fundamental geometric harmonics of angular velocities of waveforms of sound and light. In fact, their miniature or their hieroglyphics were based on the broadcasts of cosmological spectroglyphs, which represent light code transmissions that reveal by their angles and vectors the secrets of the intelligent forces on Earth, which they depicted symbolically in their pictographic writings. Now, here's a very deep occult metaphysical secret related to the alchemy of thought and to the Creator and the principle of multidimensional manifestation. A lot of it may not resonate immediately to your understanding, but a consistent and continual study of this tape will eventually allow your attention to be cleared. Some are already sleepy and have lost focus. I can see them. Because the formation of my words demands a greater output of comprehension of you, the listener, which calls for more blood to the brain, which uses more oxygen and brain-related nutrients, which means that if you supersized before you got here, forget any contact with the metaphysical realm. Now, again, all creation is negation, and negation is the dualization of one. I'm rich. Yeah. Even for the janitor. There it is now. Creation is negation, and negation is dualization. Remember that. Creation is negation, and negation is dualization. This being the case, if matter exists, then its anchor, its soul, antimatter, must exist. So, Dr. Oyedo said something of profound significance related to the paradigm of existence. He said that there is, in fact, only one element, one express representation of itself on the vibrational planes of matter, and that elemental singularity is hydrogen. It if matter does exist, then a polar balance to its existence, a doppelganger that we don't see, its soul, antimatter, exists. The waves of noon travel along the medium of space in spirals formed by the intent, the divine intent inherent within them. The spirals are formed as a direct effect of the expressed intent latent within the pi point through which they were emanated. What I have defined as the pi point is the moment at which negation ceases, the emanation begins. Listen carefully. What I have defined as the pi point is the moment that negation ceases. Okay, are you there with me?
Yeah.
The pi point is formed when negation ceases. That's the equilibrium that we're looking for when we want to find our center. In fact, the reality that you're now functioning in is here. But you're not nowhere knowing all you think about yourself. You don't know shit. Chaos. Yes, mother. Now the enjoying of the chaos, creating a rule, the point where it ceases, that's where the outer perception begins. But in your case, reversing the polarity, when you begin to go back into your pi point, you now cease the activity of your outer world, come down to the point where it stops, and at that point where you found the balance between this world and that still point within you, that's your pi point of perception. And it is from that vantage point that you begin to assess the reality that you occupy. Negative thinking.
Negative is positive.
Yep. Now, and he said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place. Remember? No, you don't, please. In the Bible, Genesis 1 and 9, 1 to 9, they said, let the waters be gathered up in one place. That's deep. What is it telling you? It says, let the waters be gathered up in one place. You can't get no particular, no other reference as clear as that. If the waters are gathered up in one place like we showed you, we show you first the rotational cycle of what they would call the waters. Give your mind a picture of the rotation of what the wave would look like based upon its intent. And what I'm going to show you is the fact that there are two natural modes of action. There's eccentric spiraling, which is centrifugal, and then there is concentric spiraling, which is centrifugal. That very wave that I just showed you has two opposite polarities rolling. You see the arrow going in one direction, and you see the arrow going in another direction. But what we're showing you here is essentially a rotation that keeps switching back on itself. You're watching it doing this. The wave wasn't going in one direction. Your limited three-dimensional concepts of what I'm talking about being linear, you think the wave is going in one direction. But the wave is omnidirectional, if you can perceive that. And the only way you can do that is through symbology.
In practice.
What?
The martial arts when you grapple or do anything, waves always go both ways. The yin goes one.
Yang, yin, yes, definitely. And so what we're going to do is to build a concept in your mind.
It's related to the DNA strand.
We're coming closer. It's all related. So if we're looking at the direction of movement, we are looking at the cycles of a rotation. And we're looking at 360 degrees of the circle of the waveform itself. And what that means we will talk about in a minute. Matter, antimatter works together. I've drawn this up to show you this, because as it moves forward, I show here by a rotation that the potential within that rotation is there, because as you will see, matter is based upon your perception of the rotation of the pulse. What does that mean? My brain is sleeping. The rotation of the pulse is positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. You are living within the focused triangulation of positive, 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 positive. What looks like it's spiraling is actually pulsing at matter-antimatter rates. And your senses are focused in the matter side of reality. Y'all with me? So as reality begins to come into focus and into view, based upon the point of perception and the reference that the overmind has to wherever it is that it places its projection, which becomes the dot, now that dot, wherever the universal creator places its perception and its reference of itself, that happens. And from that automatically starts a string of rotational energies that comes to its potential in matter. So what you're watching is the creation of the Garden of Eden. And there are billions and trillions and trillions of lions and tigers. There's trillions of everything. Anytime you think of an omnipresent, everything creator that just uses this point reference to wherever it is, wherever that focus or reference is, life begins. And remember, that happened omnidirectionally, instantaneously. Is happening, what's happening, and will be happening.
Question.
Yes.
How does understanding the matter, antimatter, assist one in the development of their own intention and better provide us, well, I guess it's twofold.
Okay, say it again.
How does understanding matter and antimatter assist one in their own development of intention or changing intention? That's the first part. And then better enable us to better handle elements.
Okay, good question. When you begin to understand how antimatter and matter works, you understand how thought uses energy to create.
Selected thought or intended thought?
All thought.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, because once you've created the angular trajectories of thought, consciously or unconsciously, you have elementals obeying those lines of force anyway.
Okay.
And that's how sometimes we have diseases begin that we don't know about, because a lot of our problems are in the subconscious level, where we are protected from knowing what's happening to us and the lines of forces that we are actually influencing. How will it help? It helps by being knowledgeable of the fact that how your thoughts work can be accessed by you envisioning certain lines of force to undo the swearing. Remember, I was saying to you that it's the imaging that you can project. Once you have turned my words into images by taking these same pictures that you see there, one camera should be always looking at this thing here, because the people need to be seeing these things to create these. These are archetypal sigils. Everybody know what a sigil is?
No.
A sigil is a symbolic reference to a force or to some entity. And have you ever seen the signs of the zodiac? And they have certain signs that look like, Scorpio, those are sigils that represent the potency of that which it represents. So, when you look at these circular things and you think matter, antimatter, and you're looking at these signs and symbols, that is the true language of the Creator and the universe, not the words that I'm speaking to you. These words are incidental. They come from the lower forces, the lower energies. Mind doesn't project words, it projects pictures. And the highest forms, since I told you in the beginning, God geometrizes. Once you understand that God geometrizes, you'll know that the particular symbols of geometry that you have now used thought to create are what's constructing your mind prison. Let me say that again. Your mind prison. In other words, using thought to manipulate light into the bars of the prism of your reality. So using thought to construct light into angular rotational modes that stop you because they're corners, and the corners are not rounded. This is why the ancestors never squared their corners in their own homes. They were rounded
Right.
to match the universe and the forces of energy that you were dealing with. So now you live in square houses, automatically you got square thinking. And you always find yourself trapped with no way out. Yes, Philip?
Okay, at the same time, if antimatter merged with matter, wouldn't it be some kind of explosion? Would this also have something to do with the moment of conception that they can't actually see?
Ah, there you go.
And if this was Star Wars, would the antimatter be dark side?
Ah, yes it is. Beautiful. Beautiful. What you're looking at when you're looking at a baby, that's why they can't see when the sperm enters the egg where the point of conception is, because there's a blank space there that nobody's been able to penetrate because it's on the light realm. A nuclear implosion takes place. And that implosion into the positive side draws back into the regular world the spirit of the life force that it's going to bring into this world. And then you begin to see it start to fold and change and so forth. But the intent was seeded. Just like you put a seed into the ground, you're not going to see what really germinates to get that thing alive. All you see, boom, is a root getting ready to sprout. But what happens is you go into the realm of antimatter, which is essentially what yours, the pulse. You're actually going into the realm of antimatter, which is the magnetic energy, calling for all the energies and influences necessary to become matter. And that becomes the foundation, yes.
What I want to ask you is, can't all this, the way it is now, right, the way the matter and everything is now, at one time, did it all reverse itself? Was it all, the opposite of what it is now?
There was no opposite to anything at this point. Everything that is...
I know, but before, you said life has no beginning, no ending. So before this translated, was it the opposite of what it is now?
No, it wasn't, because there was no opposite in there.
And there was it never was it before.
You see, that's the thing. You're looking at a point from beginning. There was no beginning. You're looking at a moment where you're saying that was what it is that's now was in the reverse of what it is that you see now.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it that you're thinking was reversed? Can you describe what it is that's now
Okay,
was
was the
reversed?
yin yang, was the yang yin, that type of thing?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Was it reversed before?
No, it was never reversed because it always was the way it is. Because if you're thinking about it being reversed to go back in the other direction,
Right.
the direction again is a perception. There is no direction inside there. They're just only, that's what I'm saying. See, now I have a real reaction. That's perfect. Beautiful. See, here's where we get caught up in semantics and how semantics squares our world. Okay? You're saying, was there anything before? Since there's a yang-yin, was there a yin-yang in response?
No, okay, I'll put it this way.
All right.
Was yang yin, and was yin yang at one time?
No.
Okay.
They always were one, which was indiscernible. They called the androgynous God, where there was no sex, asexual. As soon as the point was manifested, or the intent, whatever it is that creates the negation is the expression of the feminine principle. So whenever creation has to take place, you have to negate the masculine and the feminine principle comes into play. So creation is negation. When the sperm hits the egg, what happens? It's negated. It's completely disappeared. Nothing left. Gone. As soon as the male is negated, boom, the female starts taking off. So it's not that there was a reverse of it. There is simply the way we perceive it as it manifests itself every time. We don't know, right? See, we don't know what male and female is outside of this reality.
Right, okay.
You see, we only know male and female because we got lingam and yoni. Oh, I know that's a woman. Why? How do you know? Well, we described it that way. That's a woman. Well, of course, what does woman mean? The word don't mean shit. The function is what we're dealing with. Who is and what is the function? Not the word assigned to it, because the word, of course, carries the power that we invest into it. Word don't mean nothing. It's just a series of letters and don't mean shit until you invest the meaning. And that's why it's very difficult now, because the invested meanings is what I'm trying to get you out of. That's the circling of the square. So now we're moving on, and we're getting ready to get deep on this part here. Listen carefully. Now, the greatest mistake a student of the occult and metaphysics could make when using perception to conceptualize the ineffable one is to view its infinite aspects, that is, the light, dimension, number, geometry, time, and space, as aspects of a creation instead of the results or emanations of its divine efflux. You see, creation implies the establishment of something other than oneself, something outside of oneself, totally capable of existing as an independent unit, like I create my son. But emanations, on the other hand, implies the act of flowing, from the Latin emanere, to flow, which implies not only the existence of a source, but that the activity of flowing is dependent upon the source if it is to remain active. What flows through the Sephiroth, the light, number, geometry, time, and space, is the spirit, intent, and love of the ineffable Ein Sof, the Amen, the Who, which they all need for their existence. So what we are studying is not creation, but the nature of omniscient divine emanation that human perception defines as creation. Now, perception perceives when the wave spirals in a complete 360-degree circle. Listen carefully. Perception perceives when the wave takes on a complete 360-degree cycle or circle. What we witness under a microscope, looking at what appears to be an electron spinning around its nucleus or atom, is actually a perceptual illusion. It is our personal pi-point perspective that is gathering or gravitating the spiral motions of the wavelength to its one central point, that we triangulate the experience and perceive it as movement. You see, movement as we see it here today, what we're looking at, that's an illusion. We are making the reference to that illusion of movement because it is we that are moving. It is the movement of perception that is perceiving movement. Okay, are we here? Are we still here? Everybody, we want to get up and shake it off a little bit. It is the movement of perception of the observer. And to see the movement of the observer is to become one with the still point in the observer. The observer